The text message glowed on Emma's screen at 11:43 p.m. I miss you so much it hurts. The house feels empty without you. Her heart stopped. It was from Mark Evans, her quiet, professional employee who had never once crossed a personal boundary in the 3 years he'd worked under her. What Emma didn't know as she stared at those words was how that accidental text would change both their lives forever. Mark Evans collapsed onto his couch, exhaustion seeping into every muscle. The house was finally quiet after he'd managed to get 6-year-old Lily to bed. She'd cried herself to sleep again, clutching her mother's photo. It had been 8 months since the accident that took Sarah away from them, but for Lily, it might as well have been yesterday. He picked up his phone, intending to text Sarah's sister Jenny, who had been checking in regularly. Lily had been asking for her aunt all week. His eyes were heavy, his mind foggy from another 18-hour day juggling single parenthood and his job as senior project manager at Horizon Innovations. I miss you so much it hurts, he typed. The house feels empty without you. Lily asked about you again today. She needs you. I think I do too. His thumb hit send before he realized he'd selected the wrong contact. Horror washed over him as he saw the recipient, Emma Chen, CEO. No, he muttered, frantically trying to figure out if there was any way to unsend a text. There wasn't. His professional relationship with his boss was now potentially ruined by what would certainly appear to be a wildly inappropriate midnight message. Mark typed quickly, Ms. Chen, I am so incredibly sorry. That message was meant for my sister-in-law regarding my daughter. Please disregard. I apologize for the unprofessional communication. He set the phone down, his heart racing. Emma Chen was known for running a tight ship. Brilliant, driven, and fair, but not someone who tolerated unprofessionalism. At 35, she had built Horizon Innovations from a startup to a major player in software development. Mark respected her immensely, which made this mistake all the more mortifying. His phone remained silent. No response came. Emma sat in her modern downtown apartment, still staring at Mark's text. His follow-up explanation made perfect sense, yet something about the original message had struck her deeply. The raw vulnerability in those words, I miss you so much it hurts, felt like a window into a world she rarely glimpsed. She knew Mark was widowed. It had been in his personnel file, and she vaguely remembered sending flowers when it happened last year. Or was it earlier this year? She couldn't remember. Emma had been so consumed with the company's expansion that the personal lives of her employees often blurred together. Yet Mark had never let his personal tragedy affect his work. He was consistently her most reliable project manager, often staying late, delivering projects ahead of schedule. She had never once considered what his life might be like outside those office walls. Emma began typing several responses, deleting each one. What was the appropriate way to respond? A simple, no problem, seemed dismissive of what was clearly a painful situation. Asking about his daughter felt invasive. In the end, she set her phone down without responding, deciding to handle it professionally in the morning. But as she tried to sleep, those words kept echoing, the house feels empty without you. Her own apartment, though beautifully designed and expensively furnished, suddenly felt cavernous and cold. When was the last time anyone had missed her? When was the last time she'd allowed herself to be missed? Mark barely slept. By morning, he had convinced himself he would be fired. He made Lily's breakfast, packed her lunch, and dropped her at school with a forced smile, all while dreading the inevitable conversation with HR. Daddy, you forgot to put a note in my lunchbox, Lily reminded him at the school gate, her small face serious beneath her unruly brown curls. I'm sorry, sweetheart. He knelt down and pulled out a pen, scribbling on a napkin, I love you to the moon and back. Be brave today. Daddy. Lily studied it critically. Mommy used to draw hearts around the words. Mark's chest tightened. I'll remember that for tomorrow, okay? She nodded solemnly and joined the line of children entering the school. Mark watched her go, marveling at how such a small person could carry such enormous grief with such dignity. At the office, he kept his head down, half expecting security to escort him out at any moment. When his phone rang at 10:30 a.m. with Emma's extension, his stomach dropped. "Mark, can you come to my office, please?" Her voice gave nothing away. "Of course. I'll be right there." He straightened his tie, took a deep breath, and walked the long corridor to the executive suite, rehearsing his apology. He would be professional. He would accept whatever consequences came. Lily needed stability, and he had jeopardized that with one careless text. Emma's office was minimalist, glass, steel, and white surfaces that reflected her no-nonsense approach to business. She was reviewing documents when he entered, her dark hair pulled back in her characteristic sleek bun. "Please, sit down," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. Mark sat, his back straight. "Ms. Chen, about last night's text." She held up a hand. "Mark, I understand it was a mistake. That's not why I called you in." Relief flooded through him, quickly followed by confusion. "It's not?" "No." She set down her pen and looked at him directly. "I've been reviewing your work history. You've put in more overtime than any other manager in the past 8 months. You've never once used your personal days, and you've taken exactly 2 sick days." Mark shifted uncomfortably. "I'm committed to my projects." "That's admirable, but it's also concerning." Her expression softened slightly. "Your message last night, while obviously not intended for me, made me realize I've been remiss as a leader. I should have checked in with you after your wife's passing." The mention of Sarah made his throat tighten. "That's not necessary. I keep my personal life separate from work. Perhaps too separate." Emma leaned forward. "Mark, I'm not just your boss. I'm responsible for the well-being of everyone who works here." "How old is your daughter?" "Lily is 6. "And who watches her when you're working late?" Mark hesitated. "I have a neighbor who helps sometimes. Other times, my sister-in-law Jenny, the one I was trying to text. But she lives 2 hours away, so it's not always feasible." Emma nodded, making a note. "Starting today, I'm adjusting your schedule. You'll work from home on Mondays and Fridays. We'll move your project meetings to the middle of the week, and nothing will be scheduled after 4 p.m. Mark stared at her, stunned. "I appreciate the thought, but that's not necessary. I can manage." "This isn't a suggestion, Mark. It's a new company policy I'm implementing for all employees with caregiving responsibilities." Her tone was firm but kind. "We've been operating under an outdated model that equates hours in the office with productivity. Your work has proven that false. You consistently deliver more than colleagues who stay until midnight." Mark didn't know what to say. The accommodation would change everything for him and Lily, but he worried about appearances. "I don't want special treatment." "It's not special treatment if it's available to everyone." Emma smiled slightly. "Consider yourself the test case for our new family-friendly policies." As Mark left her office, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For the first time in months, he might be able to pick Lily up from school himself, to be there when she wanted to talk about her day or needed help with homework. 2 weeks later, Mark was working from home when he received an email from Emma requesting a video call. He quickly checked his appearance, straightened the books on the shelf behind him, and accepted the call. "How's the new arrangement working out?" Emma asked without preamble. "It's been transformative," Mark admitted. "Lily and I have established a morning routine that doesn't involve rushing. I'm actually getting more done without the office distractions." Emma nodded, satisfied. "The team has noticed no drop in your productivity. In fact, Jameson mentioned your last project came in under budget." "I've been able to focus better," Mark explained. When I know I can leave at a reasonable hour, I plan more efficiently. That's exactly what I hoped to hear. Emma paused, seeming to consider something. Mark, I have a favor to ask. The Children's Hospital fundraiser is this Saturday. I'm supposed to attend as Horizon's representative, but my keynote speaker cancelled. Would you be willing to speak about our new family-friendly initiatives? It would align perfectly with the hospital's mission. Mark hesitated. I'd be honored, but I'd need to find someone to watch Lily. The event is family-friendly. Bring her along. There will be activities for children while the adults network. The idea of attending a formal work function with his daughter made Mark nervous, but he agreed. We'll be there. Saturday arrived, and Mark found himself adjusting Lily's dress collar in the grand ballroom of the Westbrook Hotel. The space was transformed with twinkling lights and colorful decorations that made Lily's eyes widen. Are you sure I look okay, Daddy? She asked for the third time, smoothing down her favorite blue dress. You look beautiful, sweetheart. He knelt to her level. Remember, if you get tired or overwhelmed, just tell me, and we can take a break or go home. She nodded solemnly. I'll be on my best behavior. I promise. Mark spotted Emma across the room, surprised to see her in a flowing emerald dress instead of her usual business attire. She was speaking with hospital administrators but caught his eye and waved them over. Mark, I'm so glad you could make it. Her smile was warm as she extended her hand, then crouched down to Lily's level. And you must be Lily. I've heard wonderful things about you. Lily regarded Emma with curious eyes. Are you Daddy's boss? Emma laughed. I am. But tonight, I'm just Emma. My daddy works very hard, Lily informed her seriously. Sometimes too hard. That's what Aunt Jenny says. Mark felt his cheeks warm. Lily. Your Aunt Jenny sounds very wise, Emma replied, unfazed. That's why I've been making sure your daddy can work from home more often. Lily's face brightened. That was your idea? I like having Daddy home. He makes better pancakes than Mrs. Winters next door. I'm glad to hear that. Emma straightened up. Lily, would you like to see the children's area? They have an art station setting up. Lily looked to Mark for permission, and at his nod, she took Emma's outstretched hand. Mark watched in amazement as his boss, the formidable CEO known for her exacting standards, patiently walked his daughter across the ballroom, listening intently to whatever Lily was saying. The evening progressed smoothly. Mark's speech about Horizon's new policies was well received, generating interest from other companies in attendance. Throughout the night, he kept glancing toward the children's area, where Lily seemed to be enjoying herself, often in conversation with Emma, who checked on her regularly. As the event wound down, Mark found Emma and Lily sitting together at a small table, heads bent over what appeared to be an elaborate paper creation. It's an origami crane, Lily explained excitedly as he approached. Emma says in Japan, they believe if you fold 1,000 cranes, your wish comes true. That's quite a project, Mark said, smiling at his daughter's enthusiasm. I told her she could start with one and see how it goes, Emma said, rising from her chair. She's a quick learner. Lily beamed at the praise. Can Emma come over sometime, Daddy? She said she knows how to make other animals too. Mark felt a moment of panic at his daughter's directness. Lily, Ms. Chen is very busy. I'd love to, Emma interrupted, surprising him. If that's all right with your father, of course. Mark found himself nodding, unable to deny the genuine connection that seemed to have formed between his boss and his daughter. The following Friday afternoon, Mark was reviewing project timelines when his phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Still okay for origami lessons at 6? I can bring dinner. He stared at the message, still not quite believing this was happening. Over the past week, Emma had mentioned the origami lesson casually twice, but he'd half expected her to cancel. CEOs didn't typically spend their Friday evenings folding paper with their employees' children. Absolutely. Lily's been counting down the days, he replied truthfully. His daughter had mentioned Emma daily, fascinated by the idea of a lady boss who knew origami. At precisely 6 p.m., the doorbell rang. Mark opened it to find Emma holding a large bag of takeout containers and a colorful tote bag that presumably contained origami paper. "I hope you like Thai food," she said by way of greeting. I realized I should have asked about preferences or allergies. "Thai is perfect," Mark assured her, taking the food bag. Lily loves pad Thai, though she calls it noodle spaghetti. Emma laughed, stepping into the modest three-bedroom house. Mark suddenly saw his home through her eyes, the mismatched furniture, the wall of Lily's artwork, the family photos everywhere. It was nothing like Emma's sleek, minimalist aesthetic at work. "You have a lovely home," she said, and seemed to mean it. "It feels lived in and warm." Before Mark could respond, Lily came barreling down the hallway. "Emma! You came!" She skidded to a stop, remembering her manners. "I mean, thank you for coming, Miss Chen." "Emma is fine when we're not at work," Emma said, kneeling to show Lily the contents of her tote bag. "I brought enough paper for at least 20 cranes, plus some special metallic sheets for when you master the basic fold." Dinner was surprisingly relaxed. Emma shed her CEO persona completely, listening to Lily's school stories with genuine interest and sharing her own childhood memories of learning origami from her grandmother. Mark found himself watching them, struck by how natural their interaction seemed. After dinner, the origami lesson began in earnest at the dining table. Mark cleared the dishes, intending to give them space, but Emma waved him over. "You should learn too," she insisted. "Family project." The word family hung in the air for a moment, but Emma didn't seem to notice her slip. Mark sat down, and soon all three were focused on folding precise creases and angles. "Daddy, you're doing it wrong," Lily giggled as Mark's crane refused to take shape. "Here," Emma said, reaching across to guide his hands. "Like this." Her fingers were warm against his as she helped him make the correct fold. Their eyes met briefly, and Mark felt something shift between them, a moment of connection that went beyond boss and employee. By the time Lily's bedtime arrived, they had created a small flock of paper cranes. Lily insisted on displaying them on her bookshelf, carefully arranging them in a line. "Will you read me a story?" she asked Emma, her expression hopeful. Mark started to intervene. Emma had already given up her entire evening, but Emma was already nodding. "One story," she agreed. "Then it's bedtime." Mark listened from the hallway as Emma read The Paper Bag Princess, with different voices for each character, Lily's delighted giggles punctuating the story. When Emma emerged from the bedroom 20 minutes later, her expression was soft. "She's asleep," she said quietly. "She asked me to leave her nightlight on the medium setting, not too bright but not too dim." Mark nodded, touched that Emma had paid such close attention to Lily's bedtime preferences. "Thank you for tonight." It meant a lot to her. They moved to the living room, where Mark offered coffee. As they sat on the couch with steaming mugs, a comfortable silence settled between them. "You're doing an amazing job with her," Emma said finally. "She's thoughtful, kind, and resilient. That doesn't happen by accident." Mark stared into his coffee. "I'm trying. Some days are harder than others. She still asks for Sarah, her mother, every night." "How did it happen?" Emma asked gently. "If you don't mind my asking." Mark rarely spoke about the accident, but something about Emma's presence made it feel safe. "Car accident. 8 months ago. Sarah was driving home from a conference when a truck driver fell asleep at the wheel. She died instantly." Emma's hand found his, squeezing gently. "I'm so sorry, Mark. The hardest part is watching Lily grieve. Children shouldn't have to understand death so young." Mark's voice caught. She tries to be so brave, but I hear her talking to Sarah's photo sometimes, telling her about her day. Emma's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Children are remarkably resilient, but they need anchors. You're her anchor, Mark. Some days I don't feel very steady myself, he admitted. That text you received, I was having a particularly rough night. Lily had been crying for her mom, and I just felt inadequate. Emma was quiet for a moment, then said softly, "Can I tell you something? When I received your text, even knowing it wasn't meant for me, it made me realize how isolated I've become. I've built this company, this career, but at the end of the day, there's no one waiting at home who misses me." Mark looked at her with new understanding. Emma Chen, the powerhouse CEO, suddenly seemed vulnerable and human. "I think that's why I wanted to come tonight," she continued. "Not just for Lily, but for myself too. To remember there's more to life than quarterly reports and investor meetings." Their conversation flowed easily after that, moving from personal histories to favorite books, music, and travel dreams. Mark was surprised to discover Emma's dry sense of humor and her passion for classic films, things never revealed in the office setting. When Emma finally glanced at her watch, it was nearly midnight. "I should go," she said, though she made no move to stand. "Thank you again for tonight," Mark said. "Lily will be talking about it for weeks." Emma smiled. "I'd like to do it again sometime. If that's okay with you." As he walked her to the door, Mark felt a strange reluctance to see her leave. At the threshold, Emma turned to him. "That text you sent," she said quietly. "The one meant for Jenny. I've been thinking about the words, 'I miss you so much it hurts. The house feels empty without you.' Those words touched me because I realized I've never had someone feel that way about me. Never had someone whose day was incomplete because I wasn't in it." Before Mark could respond, she leaned forward and whispered, "Everyone deserves to be missed like that, Mark. Even you. Especially you." Then she was gone, leaving Mark standing in the doorway, her words echoing in his mind. Over the next few weeks, Emma became a regular visitor at the Evans household. What began as origami lessons for Lily evolved into weekend outings to museums, parks, and once, memorably, a pottery class where all three ended up covered in clay. Mark watched as his daughter blossomed in Emma's presence. Lily had always been reserved with new people since losing her mother, but with Emma, she was animated and open. They developed their own little rituals and inside jokes. Emma never tried to replace Sarah. She was careful to encourage Lily to talk about her mother, but she provided a different kind of female presence that Lily clearly craved. For Mark, the change in his relationship with Emma was both wonderful and terrifying. At work, they maintained professional boundaries, though he occasionally caught her watching him with a softness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Outside of work, they were gradually building something that felt dangerously like a family. One Sunday afternoon in the park, as Lily ran ahead to the playground, Emma turned to Mark on their bench. "I need to tell you something," she said, her expression serious. Mark's heart sank. This was it, the moment she realized the impropriety of their situation and ended whatever was developing between them. "The board has been discussing opening a West Coast office," she continued. "They want me to relocate to San Francisco to oversee the expansion." "Oh." Mark felt a hollowness spread through his chest. "When would you leave?" "That's just it." Emma took a deep breath. "I've been offered the position, but I haven't accepted yet. For the first time in my career, I'm hesitating about a promotion." Mark studied her face. "Why?" "Because of you and Lily." Her words were simple but laden with meaning. "Because for the first time, I have something here that matters more than the next career step." Mark's pulse quickened. "Emma. I'm not asking for anything," she said quickly. "I just wanted you to know that you both have become important to me. More important than I expected." Mark reached for her hand, entwining their fingers. We feel the same way. Especially Lily. She lights up when you're around. And you? Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mark looked at her, really looked at her. Not as his boss, not as the formidable CEO, but as the woman who had brought warmth back into their lives when they needed it most. I find myself checking my phone for your texts, he admitted. Looking forward to evenings when you might stop by. Noticing how empty the house feels when you leave. Emma's eyes widened at the echo of his accidental text. Mark. I know it's complicated, he said quickly. You're my boss. There are professional considerations. And Lily, I have to think about what's best for her. And what do you think is best for her? Mark watched his daughter on the swings, her face alight with joy. Stability. Honesty. People who love her consistently and completely. I can offer that, Emma said softly. If you'll let me. Mark turned back to her. What about San Francisco? Some things are worth more than promotions. She squeezed his hand. I've spent my whole life climbing the corporate ladder.